and will be giving a talk entitled Losing Yourself in the Us versus Them. Maria is pursuing a master's in clinical mental health counseling here at Liberty, and is a graduate student assistant for the Center for Apologetics and Cultural Engagement. She's currently researching psychoeducation, the psychological implications of child abuse postpartum, and parental mental health. So please welcome Maria to the stage.
Well, it is no secret that we are looking at a country that has been divided down the middle. It is a division unlike anything we've ever seen, and it has become a hostile us versus them situation. And it's truly a unique hostility compared to the past. And if you watch some of these arguments take place, you can almost visibly see the person who is arguing for their side almost lose themselves and become the embodiment, and a very angry embodiment of their argument. It's as if their very identity is anchored so deeply in what they're fighting for that they become that themselves. In his book, The American Dream, Andrew DeBlanco talks about how he has seen the country's vision become less about individuality and more about buying into these large brands of ideology. And he says the first time he really was able to grasp what was happening was when he brought one of his own children to a workshop where they were teaching them how to pick their college. And the teacher stepped in front of the class, and she said, "So when you go to pick out a shoe in the shoe store, how do you pick which shoe you're going to buy?" And the reason she asked this is because she expected everyone to say shoe size. And instead, she got the unanimous answer, brand name. Now, if you were asked this question, you might have responded in the exact same way. But think about what that means for us. When we are looking to buy a shoe, we're not thinking about primarily arch support or the size of our foot or the uniqueness of our foot. We're thinking about what brand do I want to put on my body and wear and be a representative of and tie my identity to. It's a very unique concept, and in the documentary The Persuaders, ABC goes into the marketing world and they ask these master marketers, how are you convincing us to buy what we're buying? And a former brand manager of Procter & Gamble put it this way. He said that brand managers were in charge of creating a meaning system, of creating a way to understand the world, and of creating a sense of identity. This is branding. This is soap and toilet paper and computers and shoes we're talking about. But they see their job as creating a sense of meaning for people. Now, this makes a little bit of sense if you think about the us versus them as these two sides being a brand that people have anchored their meaning in. And so my proposal to you today is to say that part of this division is caused because the political arena and the marketing world have merged in such a way that they are selling us, for the purpose of their own pockets, a civil war, and we're trading our own God-given identities for the opportunity to have a tangible identity in the affirmation of one of those sides of the argument. Now, you might hear me say that, and you might think, no, I'm better than that. I believe in the values I'm arguing for. I get so upset and so passionate because I care so much. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a study I found that talks about something called group polarization. And this study, done by Yoonju Lee, and it's from the University of California, it looked at the effects of computer-mediated de-individuation on group polarization and public self-awareness. Now, there's a lot of huge phrases all in the same sentence, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what they mean. The first one we have to understand is the computer-mediated part. This is super relevant for us now because what it means is the participants of this study did the study over computer. They weren't able to have a face-to-face conversation. And isn't that how we're doing most of our political conversations now? Over social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever that might be. The next word we need to understand is de-individuation. And what that means is you strip the person of everything that makes them a unique individual. So there's no name, no where they're from, no hobbies, no nothing like that. The next thing you need to understand is group polarization. And what that means is it's a psychological effect where all the individuals of a group will alter their opinion to the more extreme version of that opinion in order to fit in better and have better cohesion with their group. And this is seen, and this is something that people study constantly. It's a really crazy effect. And then the last thing we need to understand is public self-awareness. And what that is your heightened sense of the evaluation of those external to you or external to your group. You're more afraid of what the people on the outside are thinking. So what this study found is that this computer-mediated de-individuation affected people's polarization. And what that means is that when people were communicating without giving any individual characteristics, they were more likely to alter their opinion to fit those of the people agreeing with them. They were more likely to report that they felt like the same person as the other people in the group. And they had a heightened sense of public self-awareness, which meant they were more afraid of what the people on the outside were thinking of them. That being said, the people who did give individual characteristics had the opposite effect. They were less likely to change their opinion to fit in. They were less likely to feel like everybody in the group was the same person, and they were less likely to be afraid of what the people on the outside of the group were thinking about them. Now, this gives us some really unique insight into this us versus them that has been happening. Because when someone is fighting, and perhaps you've been in this place, when you're defending your side and you feel that rage and maybe even anger and fear start to build up inside of you, perhaps you're feeling that because you have anchored your identity in your group, and you're using the affirmation of that echo chamber to make you feel more confident in who you are. And so when someone threatens you, your heightened sense of public self-awareness kicks in, and your identity, your very identity, feels threatened by what they're saying about you. Now, this takes a lot of honesty to admit that you're doing this, and it is a hard place to be, but it is so crucial for reconciliation that we catch this effect and we don't become subject to it. So, what can you do? If you say, that is me, I do have a tendency to get passionate and upset about my side, what can you do about that? Well, the first thing you can do is this study shows that when they were having conversations in which they were all individuals with unique characteristics, they were less likely to do this. So maybe watch the social media arguments. It's so easy in those to just enter your voice into an echo chamber and just receive the affirmation instead of being who you are and acknowledging other people as unique individuals. The next thing you can do is remember that as a Christian, your identity is not anchored in any political brand. You are redeemed and called a child of God regardless of that, and your political alignment is not a necessary component for Jesus' love. And then the last thing you can do, to quote my multicultural counseling professor, Dr. Melvin Pride, when you look at these pronouns, if you add them up, you get we. And he taught us that as long as it's a they problem, we will never fix it. But as soon as it's a we problem, we can work together and set a vision for us to move towards reconciliation. Thank you very much.